it's really, for me, about listening to my heart and listening to what's right. And it's been since I was a wee child, since I was 3. You know, I was always taught with my mum, no matter what challenges were going on, to be optimistic, be positive, because that's the only way. You know, if you have any kind of challenge you're facing, you know, if you're facing it with a negative attitude and you're not being optimistic, you're self-sabotaging your own success. So, you know, it says it in my heart is always be optimistic, always do the best, always lead with love, always lead with abundance, always lead with gratitude. And they're all parts of, you know, what being optimistic is about. And it just makes life joyful all the time. No matter what's happening, it makes life joyful.
Victor Burton here, and it's the Optimism Cafe at the Centre for Optimism, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Suzzanne Laidlaw join me. I met Suzanne in Adelaide at the Action Coaches Conference, and you know when someone walks into a room and is effervescent, vibrant, lights up the environment, that's how I would describe Suzanne. So Suzanne in Perth, welcome to the Optimism Cafe.
Thank you very much. It's my dream come true.
Oh, it's my dream. It's my dream. I can see over your left shoulder from my side of things that great new book of yours, What's Your Plan? And so many great book reviews. You must be very pleased with its performance.
Yeah, and you know, I think I probably shared this with you, but I'll share it up front. Is my goal is to be a millionaire of hearts. You know, being involved in business for 30 years, so many people are driven by that little number that sits in their bank account. And to me, it just doesn't mean anything. And so I decided quite a few years ago that I was going to be a millionaire. And I'll be happily, share that I'm a millionaire, but I'm going to be of hearts instead. So I want to touch 1 million before I leave this earth.
Well, one of the people online is Caroline Ward, who is the host of The Optimist Heart, which is our vibrant program every Sunday morning. So I'm sure that sings to her and it sings to me. And it's, you know, it's that motivation of yours that really is to make a difference to the world. So the first thing we always do in the Optimism Cafe is to ask our guest, what makes you optimistic? Suzanne, what makes you optimistic?
A very good question. It's really, for me, about listening to my heart and listening to what's right. And it's been since I was a wee child, since I was 3. You know, I was always taught with my mum, no matter what challenges were going on, to be optimistic, be positive, because that's the only way. You know, if you have any kind of challenge you're facing, you know, if you're facing it with a negative attitude and you're not being optimistic, you're self-sabotaging your own success. So, you know, it says it in my heart is always be optimistic, always do the best, always lead with love, always lead with abundance, always lead with gratitude. And they're all parts of, you know, what being optimistic is about. And it just makes life joyful all the time. No matter what's happening, it makes life joyful.
Well, the German philosopher Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Now, it's colourful language, but in your case, it's true.
Yes.
Can you tell us the story of this tough life you've had to lead, and yet you've come through it as this optimistic, effervescent person?
Thank you. That is lovely to have someone describe me as that, because yeah, that's music to my ears, because I just see myself as me, and to have someone say that is beautiful. So thank you. Really, it started back, you know, it was Zig Ziglar's fault. It goes back to my friend Zig Ziglar. We saw him in Melbourne and I was about 19. and my husband and I had just recently got engaged, and we were third row from the front, and he's like, dream your wildest dreams. And he's like, what could you possibly achieve in this life? And we just kept having to write down our dreams. He's like, and where will you be in 5 years? And what could you do in 10 years? And what could you do in 30 years? And 40 years and 50 years. And he just kept going more and more and more. And, you know, what's your possibilities of your life? So my husband and I were sitting there as, you know, youngsters, madly in love, just got engaged. We wrote down, have family, get married, start a business, have children, backpack the world, you know, start an orphanage, you know, get some positive friends, all these massive lists. So this was the journey that we were about to start on, our journey together. He was from Scotland, I was from Australia. He was on holidays, fell in love with an Aussie chick and didn't return. So 2 years or year and a half on, we were just married. We just bought our first house, and I was in this euphoric state of, you know, my life is perfect. I've got my first little tiny 3x1 home, this little old 1950s house. I've got this gorgeous husband. I had a great job, and I just felt this euphoric feeling of almost the calm before the storm. I was so grateful with what had happened with my life. And then that night we'd been to a show, we got home, my husband was cold. He said, I'm just going to stay up and have a nightcap. I went to bed, it was about midnight. And my husband had noticed that my dad had left the mower in the back room, and there was a can of petrol there. And he had a silly idea, but he never actually got to do it. But it was a silly idea. He thought to himself, if I get a cap of petrol and put it on the fire, I'll have a nice hot fire straight away. So he picked up the can of petrol. He's walking through the kitchen. He had a woolen jumper on and a nylon trench coat. So he's opening the can of petrol. And have you ever seen the static electricity when you take a woolen jumper off at night if the lights are off? A lot of sparks. So he opens a can of petrol and the fumes come out, and as he opens it, the static electricity just goes boom and it explodes in his face. So he's doused from head to toe with petrol that are on fire, and he's absolutely engulfed in flames from head to toe. So he rushes through to the bathroom, puts the shower on to try and put it out, but it wasn't making any difference whatsoever. There was no difference at all, that it wasn't doing anything at all because he was doused in petrol. The fumes were roaring. I'm fast asleep, no, nothing that's gone on. House is on fire, husband's on fire. And I wake up to this gut-wrenching scream of him, Susie, Susie, you know, save me, save me. He's just screaming from the pit of his stomach, and I just woke up with a fright. I must have been asleep for maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. You know, when you just go to sleep, it's like, am I awake? Am I asleep? I was dazed, confused, bolted up, thought, is it a nightmare? Is it a dream? What's going on? Opened the bedroom door, and our bathroom's right in front of that bedroom door, and I'm just faced with the worst imaginable scene that you could ever imagine. He's standing in the shower, head to toe on fire. The water is going everywhere, not making any difference. His hands are melting off, his ears are melting, his face is melting. The smell was gut-wrenching. All I could smell was the burny fat skin and the burning plastic of the paint. The noise was, I can still hear the roaring of the fire. It was just making this roaring noise. And he's basically knew he was dying, and I didn't know what to do. And the only thing I thought of doing was I just picked up a towel off the floor and patted it on him to stop, you know, smother the flames, dragged him out, got him in the pool, because luckily we had a pool and the house was on fire. My husband's, you know, in the pool. Luckily, you know, the flames were out, and the pool was actually cooling him. The next 3 days in hospital were a nightmare, and I won't go into all the details, but basically on day 3, he's in ICU, touch and go. They didn't think he was going to live. He had over 30% of his body 3rd-degree burns. So day 3, he passed away. His head was like a medicine ball. You couldn't see the eyes, couldn't see the nose. It was just a black burnt medicine ball. It was so badly swollen. I'm sitting next to him, praying as much as I could that he wouldn't pass away, that we wouldn't lose him. His parents, who'd come out from Scotland, were on the other side of the glass. They weren't allowed in because they were from the UK. So they were just on the other side of the glass of an isolated glass ICU room, and everything stopped. All the machines stopped and they lost him. And I was just like, you know, pushed out the side. I'll never forget the moment that it all stopped, and just thinking to myself, please don't leave me, please don't leave me. We'd only been married for just over a year. And I just couldn't believe, you know, what had happened, from being euphoric, like calm, elated, over the moon euphoric, and like, you know, only a few days before, to my husband's, you know, touch and go, whether he lives or dies. So then come forward, he's in ICU for about 3 weeks. He came back. He must have been dead for, they lost him for, it seemed like an eternity, but maybe it was like 30 seconds. But he came back, and they said, we still don't know if he'll live, but, you know, we know he's got the determination. We know he's got the fight. We know he's got it in him. So then the first time I actually spoke to him was when he was in the burns unit. So he was in ICU for 3 weeks, and then he got out and started to improve and go into the burns unit. Now, I still never spoke to him. His head, as I said, was like a medicine ball. It was so badly burnt. And he'd lost most of the flesh of his skin and off his face, and he was not in a good state. So the first time I spoke to him in the burns unit, he said to me, I've had some really, really weird dreams, Susie. And I was like, okay, you know, you've been on a lot of drugs. I told him the accident. I told him what had happened, and told him how long he'd been in there for. And he said, I just keep having this same weird dream. And I said, tell me about it. And he said, I kept seeing, he said, I saw my body, and I saw the mess it was in, and it was just awful. I could see I'd done something really, really tragic to myself. But he said, I could see you sitting next to me, and I could see the love coming from you. And I could see my mum and dad. And he's like, I know it was a dream, because my mum and dad are in Scotland. My mum and dad are sitting next to me outside a glass room for some weird reason. And he said, I had this choice. He said, I'm looking at my body, but I had a choice. And this is a very skeptical person. He's explaining the dream to me. He's like, I had a choice whether to stay and face up to what had happened, because I could see that my body didn't look like me anymore. It was just this mess. And I had a choice to go. And I knew I'd really, you know, was going to have a struggle. But I saw you, and I saw the love from my parents, and I decided, you know, that what we've done is we planned out our life together. We planned out all these dreams. He said, we'd started this 50-year journey together. And he said, I wasn't going to give up at the start of the journey. He said, I kept looking at that list from Zig Ziglar. And he said that list that he made us make of have children. We hadn't started having children. Of start a business. We hadn't started a business. Of travel the world. We hadn't backpacked the world. We hadn't done any traveling together yet properly. And he said, I kept looking at all our dreams and all our plans and all our hopes. And he said, I couldn't let you down. He said, I just wasn't going to leave without a fight. He said, I just couldn't give up and let you down. And so I decided that I would give it a shot. And I said to him, I said, that wasn't a dream, mate. That was true. I was there. You died. And he's like, but how could it be? My parents were there. And I'm like, they were here for 3 weeks sitting outside that glass, and they had to go back to Scotland because they couldn't stay any longer. They had jobs and lives. And it's like that thing that was the worst thing that ever happened to us in our life is turned out to be the best thing, because I know now that the power of optimism, the power of being clear on what our optimistic life is, what the power of having that vision of what success is for you can be so powerful. It can drive you literally. What I saw was him come back from stopping, from being dead.
It is so powerful. The Vienna Medical School just 6 weeks ago now produced a report on the sleep and optimism. And they said, but the most powerful tool in creating and maintaining optimism is visualizing your best self. Exactly what Zig Ziglar said to you. And I think Zig is now 89 or 90, isn't he?
No, I think he's passed away, I think. I'm pretty sure he has.
Yeah, but that notion of visualizing my best self
Yes.
is such a powerful tool, and you and your husband
Yeah.
exemplify.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was just so powerful, and he was so sure it was a dream. And afterwards, when he could walk again, I took him to the ICU, and he was overwhelmed with emotion. He's like, "This is my dream I kept having. I actually saw this," and it was exactly as he'd described that room to me. And he was very skeptical, very atheist, very skeptical until that experience. And many people that have passed away and they've got them back have had similar experiences. And it's so powerful. And that's what I want to help more people do. Get clear on what is their amazing life that they want. What is their amazing business, their amazing relationship, their amazing house, their amazing, self, their amazing communication skills. What are they? And then we can go and work out, well, what do we have to do? Because this has been a huge journey that my husband and I have gone on, and it was really dark for 10 years afterwards, really dark, which is what I go through in my book. It was really hard.
And, as my mother passed recently, and she was a yoga teacher for 50 years. And one of the things that maintains your optimism is yoga and meditation. And meditation is a daily ritual for you. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that and how that maintains your optimism?
Yeah, we were told that there wasn't really much we could do about the pain of burns other than drugs that they give you. But as you slowly and surely improve and come out of hospital, he wanted to look at other techniques for pain management. And so we went and researched and found transcendental meditation. And so we went and learned how to do it together, and pretty much have done it every day since then. So for 30 odd years, and we try and do it together if we can. And now, funnily enough, David's become a yoga teacher. We have a yoga studio at our house now, which is our converted lounge room into it, and now it's a beautiful yoga space. And when things are dark or there's challenges, breathing, yoga, meditation, they all have such an amazing impact. It makes it so much more, everything is more optimistic. With meditation and yoga, life is more optimistic. Everything is better.
I remember my mother went to an ashram at the Vivekananda ashram near Bangalore.
Yes.
And I was speaking at a conference in Bangalore. I remember driving out to pick my mother up, and the sign that was outside the door of her hut at the ashram said, "The finest steel is born in the hottest fire."
Very good.
And it's an intersecting memory of yours.
Yeah,
now, we'll turn to your book, but we've got guests online, both on Zoom and Facebook and the like, and I'd love them to join the conversation. Because we were going to do this as an interview, but we thought better to do it live. Live is always better. So I'll certainly be inviting people on as they ask questions or make comments. But your book, what's your plan? I mean, we were actually going to do it a little while ago, but my mother's death, we delayed this interview, and you've had a lot of really positive book reviews. So what's the idea of the book? What's your plan?
So what happens is often people will talk about, one day they're going to start a business, or one day they're going to get fit, or one day they're going to have a great relationship. And so there's always things that people would like to achieve in their life or in their business or in their department of where they work. But what happens is it's very hard for them to work out, well, how do I get from here to there? And so one of the things I ask people when I meet them is, okay, you'd like to, run a marathon, or you'd like to start a business. Well, great, what's the plan? And they generally have a blank look. And so what I've done in my book is I've decided that all the business books I've read over the years and all the self-help books I've read over the years, they're either all theory, so science-based for self-help books, and business theory-based for business books. And then you've got the storybooks, the non-fiction books, where people share their amazing success of doing a marathon or starting a business from scratch and becoming very successful. So often people read the theory book about, you know, how to get fit, or how to start a business, or how to have a great relationship, or they read the story, and both of them, they're like, oh, that's their life, mine's not like that, or that's the theory, but how do I actually put it into practice? So what I've decided to do is, when we hear a story that touches our heart, it helps us to remember it because we're touched by the heart. So what I've done is, every chapter I put one of our major challenges in our life that parallels with something that's needed, the theory behind what you're wanting to plan. So for example, first chapter is all about the fire and visioning. And so that's that. Those two stories make people really understand, well, it's important to have a vision of what success looks like, whatever it might be, the house, the business, the relationship. So I've paralleled that, as well as case studies of real people, and also some recommended reading, and also some actions. Go out and do a vision board. You know, look at thinking, you know, out wild what you'd like your life to be like, or your relationships to be like, and start to work on them. And so that way, my joining of the theory and a real life story will hopefully end people touched, moved, and inspired to make their life better than before.
So in doing that visioning, and then you're very practical. I think you've been doing business coaching now, is it 25 years?
Oh, a long time. Yeah, I mean, I had my own businesses for a couple of years. I've been in action coach for about 12 years, but I have been coaching for well over 25, because I used to do triathlon for 20 years. So I've coached swimming, running, cycling. So lots, I've been coaching since I was, I think, 13.
Yeah, and run lots of marathons and the like. So, you know, there's the dream, there's the visioning, and then there's the reality. And my impression is you are very good at making that connection between visioning and practicality.
Yes.
So what's your bit of advice for that person now who's post-COVID, doesn't want to go back to an office, you know, doesn't want to go back to working for someone, loves the idea of being independent and having more balance in life and not being subject to the commands of the man?
Yes.
So how do you do it? How do you go from the vision of, look, I took up painting again, or I took up crochet, or I took up, you know, I've heard all these stories of people revisiting their great skills and talents. So, and they think, well, can I turn this into a business? So what's the connection between the vision and making it happen?
It's a good question, because I think a lot of people have problems with joining those gaps. So we get clear on what the vision is, first of all. So whatever part of your life that is. And so maybe it's, you know, running a marathon, maybe it's starting a business, maybe it's finding the perfect partner, or having a renovated house. We have that picture firmly in our mind, and preferably written down and described in pictures. You know, I always have a vision board for every year, and it's with lots of pictures, lots of words that inspire. Then we need to come back one step and say, okay, well, what's one goal that's a little milestone that will tell me I'm one step closer to that? So, for example, my goal was, you know, over COVID, to do a slight renovation here. So the goal was to get, first step, an engineer to look at it. That was one step. So my goal for that 1 month was to get the engineer's drawing. My goal was to have the whole project done by Christmas, but my goal was to do that one thing for that 1 month. That was one goal. So getting very specific goals that are very specific and that have a date. Then once you've got that, and again written down and ticked off, I mean, I of my 12-month vision board, I always have months, each month of one thing I'm going to do in relation to whatever it is I'm wanting to achieve. And then coming down from that, we need to say, well, what's the plan? Do we have a plan around that? So is the plan to do it ourselves, project manage it ourselves? Is the plan to get some tradespeople? You know, what is the plan? So get some strategies. And then the last step, which is I think the one that most people forget, is put it in your calendar. Whatever it is, it has to be done and it needs time. Put it in your calendar. So if you've got this great project or fitness or house or business, and it's new or different, even if it's not new or different, whatever we want to achieve, it has to be in your calendar. And I plan that out at the beginning of the month when I'm going to do that, because often I want to do too much. Then I go and start putting things in my calendar, and it's like, okay, right, let's be realistic now. Maybe we'll do that next month, because once I've filled my calendar up, it's like, oh, there's no more time left.
I think your book is very good, and you're very good at getting rid of the stuff that doesn't matter.
Yes.
So, you know, it's easy. I find myself, you know, I get 200 emails a day, and you're putting it into your task that I'm going to write that few paragraphs, or I'm going to read that paper that someone sent me and comment. What's your technique? I mean, obviously, you know, the best coaches in the world say, learn to say no.
Yes.
But how do you really learn to do what's really important, what's going to take you forward, and what's the stuff that's dross?
Yes, and I think a lot of people, and if somebody is a homemaker, so they've got children that they're looking after, or maybe even homeschooling, and they're running a business, they're trying to keep a relationship, and they're trying to keep fit. Often there's a bit of a struggle, and I found it myself when we were running a business. I would be finding myself, oh, it's sports day and I've got to go there, but I'm a businesswoman and I don't want to let clients down. So there was often a bit of a value struggle. So I think for me, getting very clear on the values and the priorities of those big rocks is crucial. And my clients and my team know that family and health come above all for me. So if my mum is sick because I'm her only daughter, or she needs me to go to an appointment because she's deaf, they don't mind. And I tell that if anyone wants to work with me, I say, I must tell you that on the very odd occasion, if something happens with my children or my grandchild or my mum, because I'm my daughter's only backup, her mum, and my mum's only backup, so I'm backup for 2 generations, they know that family and health are number one. So getting clear of the value priorities or your goal priorities, because they're aligned, so that then if there's all this noise of, oh, you have to do this and you have to do this, you just look and reflect back and say, well, what are my top goals for this month? What are my top priorities? It doesn't come in that. Okay, no, sorry. I would really love to help you, but I would just hate to let you down, because I've got so many commitments this month, and the last thing I'd want to do is let you down. And too bad. Just be open and honest. Be open and honest. That's the best thing.
Trust. I read this beautiful piece this week from actually a 1990s paper by a Melbourne philosopher that said that trust is the optimistic belief that someone is going to keep their promise. And it sounds like you're really upfront, aren't you? Oh,
very, very, very upfront. So, you know, if someone sends an email and I really want to reply, but what happens, I'm doing a 2-day workshop and it's 3 days and I feel awful, I'll just tell them the truth. I'm really sorry. I didn't ignore your email. I did see it, but I've actually been in a vortex in a workshop for 2 days. So please take my humble apologies. I'll just be open and honest. I won't say, oh, it got lost or it was in junk or whatever. I'll just say it as it is.
Look, you're so, I mean, as I said, you are enchanting in the way you describe these things. So, you know, you've got the book and you're a popular speaker. You know, you've got your coaching business, you've got your relationships, husband, children, parents.
Grandma.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Grandma, yes.
Muzzle top.
I'm daycare backup. So yeah, no, I'm grandma of a beautiful 3-year-old. Yeah.
So what's your next dream? What's where are you headed?
Good question. It is to touch 1 million hearts. And if you, if anyone out there listening reads my book, they will find out that I too was given a challenge with health, and so I didn't you know, pass away as was predicted, and so I'm here for a reason, and that's my reason is to touch, move, inspire people to be more optimistic about what is possible in their lives, and to live that optimism with every choice and every action that they make in a positive way.
And what's the best way if people want to help you in reaching those 1 million hearts and they're touched by it, what's the best way that they can help you reach that goal?
I suppose that the more people that read my book, the better, because they will really get moved by reading the story, and they will get moved in many ways, moved emotionally, but they will move into action themselves. I can guarantee they will act more on their own dreams afterwards. And, you know, sometimes, you know, challenges are with people who read books because, you know, with time. So I made sure that I put it on Audible. So if people are not Audible members, your first book is free on Audible. So I dictated it, I read the book myself. And so that way people can listen to it in the car, or you know, listen to it when they're going out for a walk or something like that. So it gives people who are not readers the opportunity to read it. But I did have a beautiful lady who said to me the other day, 42, it was the first full book she'd ever read in her entire life. She had tears in her eyes. She was so emotional because she's a business owner. And I told her it was easy to read, and she took her a month, but she was so emotional. So I thought that was lovely.
Oh, that's beautiful to touch hearts like that.
Yeah,
And
it is. So
I actually haven't been much of an Audible user, but I recently had to prepare some stuff, and I've actually found it much better than listening to the radio, which is full of bad news. And it's really part of adjusting the content you're absorbing so that you can feel positive and optimistic.
Absolutely. My goal is 2 books a month, and I do them both on Audible, because I get to listen to them when I'm walking the dog, I get to listen to them when I'm driving the car, or when I'm doing the dishes or hanging the washing out. So I will never be hanging the washing out without a book in beside me, speaking to me. My neighbours must wonder the sort of things I listen to.
But it's also good for the author to do it. I've just, for another reason, I've been listening to Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a 1952
Love
classic.
that book. Yeah.
And like you know, what's he got? You know, people think, you know, oh, 1952, and but yet there's meditation.
Yep.
There's reflection.
Wattles books the same. Wattles
there's
books
silence.
Yeah. They're amazing, these old classics. They're exactly relevant as they are today as they were then.
And like you, he narrates it.
Yes. Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, it was a real challenge for me to narrate it myself. And when I told my kids I was going to, they're like, Mum, you're not that good at reading. How are you going to do that? And I'm like, I will. And that's the power of, you know, positive and optimism, because I got in that studio and something happened, overcame me, and I read very articulately. And you would not, I had a stutter as a child. I had an elocution teacher. You would not have thought I was a bad reader. I just kept thinking, it's $130 an hour, get it right, straight away.
Well, Joe Biden, of course, had a stutter as well.
Yeah.
And now he's president, or will be president shortly. So the two of you seem to be hugely aligned. Well, look, Suzzanne Laidlaw, this has been a fantastic conversation. We've had people beaming in on Facebook, and people will be watching this on demand. And you've just been wonderful, just wonderful. So we'll formally close this, but I'd like to invite some of the people who are watching online to join us, because as I said, you're just so aligned with those folk, and I just so appreciate you spending the time with me.
Oh, it's my absolute honor. If you know, if I, as I said, it's a dream come true to me. So you know, I'm really honored to be able to have an interview with you. So it's my, I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Well, we hope you loved that episode of The Optimist Heart. There was, in fact, vibrant conversation that followed with our other guests, and always better to join these things live. The recording was vibrant, but join us for our events. So go to thecenterforoptimism.com. You can sign up for our updates for free, or you can join as a member, and you'd be very welcome to participate, to share your optimism, and to surround yourself with optimists, because in these relatively bleak times, there's nothing more important than a boost of optimism and being infectiously optimistic yourself.